Since our job in art history is to track how cultural traditions develop and transform, we go here in the origins of art in Japan to the very first artifacts telling us about human habitation in Japan. And that is pottery. Pottery is often what survives from the deep past and allows archaeologists to reconstruct prehistoric and ancient cultures. So the textbook introduces Paleolithic peoples, that's Old Stone Age, giving way to Neolithic peoples, the New Stone Age, and out of that, the ability to make and use ceramics. What's fun about ancient Japanese history is it confounds these usual categories of Paleolithic and Neolithic. So our earliest cultural period is called the Jomon period, which literally translates cord making, because it is named after these kinds of pottery vessels, some of which use these cord designs on them. The earliest ones, such as this one, very early, 10,000 BCE, does not have the cord design. It's extraordinary to have pottery from 10,000 BCE survive. That's really unusual. What's also unusual is that the Jomon culture at this point, 10,000 BCE, was a hunter-gatherer culture, which means their economy, their life way, economy in its root meaning is how you sustain life of the group. They sustain the life of the group through hunting and gathering. That was how they got their food and shared it. So they do not yet have agriculture. Usually, almost all the time, when we're talking about cultural development, hunter-gatherer cultures don't use pottery. It's heavy. Why would you want to make pots? It's better to make baskets if you're moving around after the animals and the plants. The interesting thing is that they confound the categories of hunter-gatherer culture because they start out all actually having settled villages, which were pit dwellings with thatched roofs, even as they're having a hunter-gatherer economy. And they start to have a highly evolved ceramic technology before agriculture. So that's the oldest known pottery in the world. And as they develop to have a mixed hunter-gatherer and agrarian ecology, we still have these amazing pots and these cord markings. We could talk about them in terms of how they actually take what appears to be elements from baskets, right? Basket structures, and translate them into clay. And they have this exuberant quality where we have lots of energy and texture from these kind of rough designs and there's an embrace of the imperfect, the kind of asymmetrical quality here that you see on the right versus the left. There's also an emphasis on materials, their weight and their heft, the kind of tactile quality of materials. That will be distinctively Japanese, and it's somewhat different than what we saw in Neolithic China. So we saw an amazing bowl from Neolithic China, Neolithic New Stone Age, early agricultural villages, perfect circle, smooth finish. We were interested in the painting because we're so interested in how the arts of the brush develop in China. This is very different. It is, I'm saying here, exuberantly imperfect. It is not trying to be a perfect circle. And we will see a kind of delight that will reappear again and again in Japanese culture in sort of the rough and the coarse, that there's a playfulness to the asymmetry, there's a soulfulness to the roughness, and there's a tactility that comes with the kind of strong effort to allow the material to have its own properties and not to try to smooth it all out. So the textbook tells you a little bit more about the details of the making. And, you'll start to notice terms like earthenware as you're studying ceramics, earthenware, stoneware, and you'll also notice how the temperature makes a difference, whether it's fired at low temperature or high temperature, makes a difference in the kind of finish it has, in the kind of presence that the clay has, whether it's very delicate and fine or whether it's kind of hefty and solid. They also talk about these small humanoid figures known as dogu. They give you a little definition of that, but I need to show you. These are so cool. We need to take advantage of Google so that I can show you some of these. These incredible figures that survive from the Jomon period are full of charisma, right? They have this amazing power, and that power is linked to the kind of coarse heft of the way the materials are shaped and these astonishing eyes. Let me show you a little discussion of that. So we can go to this one, which is in the collection of the Metropolitan Museum of Art. So this is a little moment of demonstrating and reinforcing using reliable sources. A major international museum that has this treasure, and they tell you a little bit about it, where it's coming, where it was actually found, and also using those art historical skills that you are practicing and will use in your capstone project of describing. So they say the most arresting aspect of these figurines is their large, bisected, coffee bean shaped eyes. What great description is that? Like the kind you used on the sensory description. Or here, we're now at the auction house Christie's. So this is actually a .com website. And I say, when I talk about reliable sources for the capstone project, I say, oh, usually you want to use .edu or museums, which are .org. Christie's as an auction site is .com, but it is a very reliable one because they actually sell these treasures. You see the price realized and the price estimated. So they auction off these extraordinary objects to rich people or to other museums. And they estimated that it would be $15,000 to $25,000 US, but it went for $84,000. I think that's a good deal. I don't have that kind of money, but it is obviously a unique and extraordinary object that dates from 1000 to 400 BCE. And their description is very good too. They say modeled as a standing woman with an upturned nose and prominent ears wearing a headdress. Look at how precise they are. Upturned ears. She is indeed standing. She's standing in a kind of wide stance, right? The short arms and shoulders incised with decorative lines and the bulging hips with punched and incised designs, the genitals exposed. Yes, indeed, that's the truth. The breasts separated by a V-shaped band. Right, so they are very precise about what you're seeing. Because all of this is interesting. Why did the artist choose to do it this way? That is the question you're always asking when you're studying art history. Why show her genitals? Is she some kind of fertility figure? Is she wide to give birth? Why are the breasts separated by this form, this cord-like form? What is this headdress? Is she some kind of a shaman? Shaw woman? Shaw person? So this here is all to get you intrigued. And maybe when you go to the Asian Art Museum, you might look for a dogu figure.